Come on, somebody. Welcome back to Caleb and Caldwell, episode 5. We just dropped a special guest segment last week. You guys have already seen that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's back to the regular crew, though. Me and Caleb. I'm Caldwell. He's Caleb. We're ready to get going with this. We're back into the regular schedule. In Sports and Scripture today, we're talking about a biblical worldview of reconciliation and forgiveness. Looking forward to talking about that. And that was live. I'm talking about responding to a game that I actually had no connection to in terms of my favorite teams. But it was still one of the greatest sports moments in football history that I got to watch live with my family. So looking forward to that. And from there, we're going into high five, Caleb. We're switching it up today. We're going to be giving our top 5 NBA players of all time, right in NFL and MLB. And we're getting into it, and from there, it should be a good rest of the episode.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We've top 5 NBA players of all time can get controversial. It could be more controversial than any of the previous ones. But from there, we're going to go into beyond the numbers. I'll be talking about a pitcher statistic, a pitcher metric that we can be thinking about in baseball. And then we're going to close it out with everyone's favorite episode, or everyone's favorite segment, or second favorite segment, Double Dipping, where we give our hottest takes. And yeah, last week was it got going. It was pretty fiery.
It got fiery. It got going. You had Josh Holcomb into the mix, and it's sure to be fun. But we're ready for another great episode. Thank you guys so much for your support thus far. So now it's time to talk all things sports from a Christ-centered, Bible-saturated perspective. Let's roll. Welcome back to Sports and Scripture, where we tackle the various aspects and avenues of sports from a biblical perspective, as we look to the Word of God for the answers and the solutions to all of life's problems, and specifically all the issues that come up in sports. Today, Caleb, we're talking about a biblical worldview of reconciliation, biblical worldview of forgiveness, and it's a interesting topic to talk about, especially when we think of from the sporting world, which is what we do on this podcast. But we also like to turn to the Word of God, and we encourage you guys, as we do every week, to have your Bible out if you're able to. And if not, just listen as we read it. Again, Caleb and I recognize that these conversations are important to us just as much as the rest of the podcast is fun. This is important to us because we are addressing issues and going to the most sufficient answer, which is God's Word. We recognize that is powerful and that is sufficient for our lives. Caleb and I have made a profession of faith to that. And so we want to always get that reminder as we do this segment. So we're going to a biblical worldview of reconciliation. And the way I want to start this conversation, Caleb, is the fact that I want to look first to the world's definition of reconciliation, the world's answer, if you will, to reconciliation. Caleb's already got allergies over there. But we look at the world and we see, at least from my perspective, I don't think it's just me, but we look at the world's perspective and we see a very warped and very twisted definition of reconciliation or forgiveness. Mm-hmm. When we look at this, and I really want to address it straight from the sports perspective first before I go to the Word of God, because it's a very slippery slope when we think about when players need to apologize for something. So we think of steroids, or we think of an altercation between teammates, or we think of a brawl between a head coach and the star player. And when we think about how those things are reconciled, it's a very warped and very twisted way to go about doing it. Just some things that I thought of that came to mind for me is that you have to say you're sorry so there's no more beef. And you need to do it because it's for the best, it's for the betterment of the team. It's going to help you win more championships by just apologizing for it. And oh, by the way, make sure you over-exaggerate it and that it's public, just so everyone knows. It's a very shallow definition, or it's a very shallow avenue of thinking to address really a very major issue of the heart. And that's really the next step that I want to take on this. If we're looking at this in a tier level, looking at the world's definition first, and then looking at the fact that this is a heart issue. This is not just this external idea of, well, they got into a brawl, or well, they have been lying to one another, or he's been lying about his contract, or this coach has been lying about his we just think about domestic violence, think about domestic abuse, like different cases that have come up with that, and people that have lied. There's so many different avenues we can go with this. We won't go into specifics, but we think about those things. We realize this is a very shallow solution, a very shallow and very honestly disappointing solution to a heart issue. And that's where I want to now transition us to the Word of God, where we find the answers. If you guys have your Bible, open it to Galatians chapter 6. I finished 1 Timothy a while back and just going through it every single day for a month. I then transitioned into Galatians, so Galatians has immediately come to mind as I've been going through it. And we'll look at the first 2 verses of Galatians chapter 6 as we think about reconciliation, as we think about what this means for the Christian, what this means for true, biblical, deep reconciliation and forgiveness. And Galatians chapter 6, verse 1 says this. This is the word of God that reads, "Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watching yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." This is true reconciliation. This is what the Bible calls us to. If we're caught in a sin, Caleb as my brother, or you listening who know me, or someone who you're connected to directly, if they're caught in sin and you know they're in sin, you are to restore them in a spirit of gentleness. But think about the flip side of that. If you are in an argument with this person, or if you are the one they are saying against, or you are the one saying against them, you are also to restore them in a spirit of gentleness. That is reconciliation. And when we think about the biblical definition, a couple key words come to mind for me. Humility, which Caleb talked about a little bit last week, and when we talked about this, the popularity or excelling and succeeding, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Humility, respect for an individual, not just because, I want to make them happy or I just want to put this behind us. That is the most satanic lie of reconciliation. That, I just want to put this behind me. That is not the way to go about reconciliation. The way you reconcile yourself to someone and ultimately to God, which if we had more time, we would touch on just the beauty of the gospel and reconciliation. The only way you can bring about true reconciliation is if you realize, I actually want to be made right with this person. It's more than just, I want to put this behind me. It is actually, no, I love Jesus too much than to be at hostility with this brother in Christ or this sister in Christ. And then verse 2 of Galatians 6, bear one of those burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Bear burdens with people. If you know there's beef or controversy or just strife between each other, hear them out. Bear their burden. I'm learning this just with all the civil unrest going on. I need to listen to people a lot more than speaking. Now, I have spoken out and said some things, and Caleb and I have even mentioned that in the coming weeks we want to have a conversation about everything that is going on in our world. But I've also wanted to listen to people and listen to both sides of the argument and how the hope of the gospel can be inserted into this civil unrest. And so one more verse, I had a couple more verses, but I'll only give one more just so Caleb has time, is Philippians 2. And it's a familiar verse for you guys if you guys are believers. And if you're not, I encourage you to listen to this with new ears and with ears that are, Lord willing, being able to listen. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, it says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit. This idea that I said of the shallow definition of reconciliation, where you're doing this just so you can put it behind you. It's a selfish thing, the selfish way to attack it. But in humility, do not for selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And why is that fact? Because later on in Philippians 2, it talks about because of Christ. Because of Christ. So that's kind of how I want to begin the conversation. I'll throw it over to you now, Caleb. But humility, gentleness, respect, that is true reconciliation. And we need to stray away from, like I said, the satanic lie of reconciliation that is just put it behind you. Just make them happy. even if you're not in a right place about it, just make them happy. Make sure it's public. Make sure people know that you have no beef with this person, even though inwardly in your heart you probably still do. Because what's more important is your reconciled heart to God, so you can reconcile them to each other.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to touch on what you said too. The difference is in motivation between the believer and the unbeliever. Well, genuineness for one, and motivation. I think one verse I thought of is John 12. Is in John 12, verses 42 and 43, where it's talking about. Well, I'll just read it. Nevertheless, many even of the rulers believed in him, being Jesus, but because of the Pharisees, they were not confessing him for fear that they would be put out of the synagogue. And then verse 43, for they loved the approval of men rather than the approval of God. And I think that with some of these apologies that you see, that's the biggest motivator for them, is that these athletes are looking for the approval of men rather than the approval of God. There's no apologies before anyone's caught. It's only once everything is public. And then it's to save their image. Ultimately, it's not. There's no real heart change without true, genuine repentance to the Lord, which in Psalm 51 we hear is, against you and you only have I sinned. It's complete brokenness over sin. But rather, it's like AJ was saying, a public kind of display of regret, rather that they were caught in whatever happened, rather than true, genuine repentance, which 2 Corinthians 7 tells us would lead to zeal for the opposite things. And I think that's the biggest thing, is there can be apologies for things that need apologies for, but the motivator for the unbeliever will always be a horizontal motivation rather than vertical. It will always be among people around them to keep their reputation, or to try and build up their reputation, rather than, like AJ said, it's a heart issue. With first and foremost, it might be sin against others, but first and foremost, it's with the Lord. You think about even other things that are maybe not even directly sin, but I thought about the Drew Brees thing recently.
Mm-hmm. Where, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Yeah.
There's with the whole, so there's the kneeling with the flag thing. And when it happened, it was first 2016. I think he definitely strongly spoke out against it. And then recently said that, he will never support kneeling during the anthem. Yeah. And then he got, thrown. Everyone was just hitting on him for it. Because right now,
including his teammates.
Yeah, exactly. The sports networks everywhere, teammates, athletes, LeBron James, all these guys. And what happens then? Because right now, right, the culture is moving with that movement of they've turned together. Because when he spoke against it in 2016, the general census against it was speaking out against it. But now the general census and everyone is more on that side. And so what does he do? He comes out with this big apology, and now he's completely on the other side. And what happened? His opinions changed because the culture changed. Yeah. And because he's being thrown under the bus for it. And so that's a big danger athletes could fall into is, are your opinions and convictions based on the Word of God, or are they based on everything that's going on around you? And if they're based on everything around you, they're just going to be tossed here and there, and you won't have anything to stand on. On Christ, the solid rock I stand, all other ground is shifting sand, sinking sand. And so that was one other thing too, is even in an issue that's maybe not necessarily like black and white a sin issue, but just having a minority opinion and just being so based on that fear of man, John 12:43, that you will just change your opinion like this to be seen in the right light with everyone else.
Yeah. I think of Tony Dungy's response to that as well. I don't know if you saw that, but he's an analyst for a sports network, and he basically said they were asking about the Drew Brees situation, and he was like, if Drew doesn't feel like he needs to apologize, he doesn't need to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if he wants to stand for something that I also stand for, Tony Dungy was saying, like, I'm with Drew Brees. And he's like, I understand that Drew needed to apologize. Like, I understand why Drew wanted to, like, you know, be seen well in the eyes of people. But he's like, I stand with Drew. And I think that if Drew doesn't feel like he needs to kneel for the flag, he doesn't need to kneel for the flag. And it's like, that's the response. And Tony Dungy is like very high and well in the football community. Like, he's not afraid. And Tony Dungy is a very solid voice when it comes to sports topics on this. So that's just another thought that I had on that. But I mean, it's a good discussion. It's a really good discussion. Thankful for your words, brother, as always, just in thinking about it and talking about it. But we're going to transition now into my favorite personal segment of my own, which is That Was Live. Welcome back to That Was Live, as I retell the joys and sorrows of sports fandom that I've experienced. And Caleb, this one actually has nothing to do with a joy or a sorrow, because I had no direct affiliation to this game. I was sitting back as a lover of sports, as a fanatic of college football specifically. So I'm encouraging you to jump on this hype train with me, even though you do not understand the love that comes with being a college sports fan. That's okay. We will bear with you, and we as a community will embrace you as you pro sports lover.
I'm good with that. Pro sports is all I need.
Whatever. So this is a really fun what's the word for it? A fun kind of, I can't even find the word for it. It was an event that I will remember for the rest of my life, because it was one of the most eventful, I guess the right word I can find for it, the most eventful end to a football game I've ever seen. And this was with immediate family and extended family. And I'm talking about the kick six between Auburn and Alabama. And I believe it was 2014. I don't quote me on that. I don't remember what year it was.
That sounds
right.
But
it was the Iron Bowl, which is one of the greatest rivalries in college football. I put it up there with a lot of rivalries. I wouldn't say it's the best. I am from Iowa, after all. I think we have a pretty good sports rivalry. But nonetheless, Auburn-Alabama is a fierce, fierce football rivalry. And so this game was on national television, obviously, as it always is. Alabama was number 1 in the nation. Auburn was number 4 in the nation. Auburn, just a couple weeks prior, had thrown a 4th and 18 miracle against Georgia to win the football game, where it bounced off 2 defenders' hands into the Auburn receiver's hands for the game-winning touchdown. It's crazy. It was like, no way that's going to happen again within the same month. And yet it did. The kick six versus Auburn versus Alabama, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the kick six was a missed field goal that Alabama kicked that was returned for a touchdown to end the game. Okay? So the kick six, meaning Alabama was taking a game-winning field goal, the score was tied, and the Auburn receiver or kick returner returned the kick that was missed from the back of the end zone all the way to the end zone. Insane. It was crazy. Okay? So let me set the stage then. We had just gotten home from like a family outing or something. We had extended family in town. So we were in California at the time. We had extended family in town, grandmas and grandpas, all that jazz, all tons of fun stuff. Well, like any like sports loving family, like we turned on college football. And Iowa and Iowa State already played that day. I don't remember the outcomes of those games because they weren't important compared to what was about to happen. And so we realized we kind of flipped through channels as you always do. And you're just like, what game is good? What game is good? And we turned on Auburn-Alabama game. And it was the fourth quarter. So this is the coolest part about this is you turn on a game and it's in the fourth quarter. It's like, it's about to get real and there's going to be something that's like legendary that goes on in this game. So it was a really close game. It was at Auburn and they would go back and forth, like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for 15 minutes straight. And we're like, this game is insane. And so I'm just loving this as a sports fan. Well, it gets down to it, and there ends up being a second left that actually shouldn't have been a second left, but it made for better drama. That if you go back and actually watch the replay, he stepped out of bounds with no seconds left, the running back, because they were trying to set up for a field goal. Set out of bounds with no seconds left. They put a second back on. Who knows why the refs did that, but it made for this moment, which was perfect. And so probably because of it being Alabama, but I digress. So Alabama sets up for a 58-yard field goal. 58-yard field goal. So this is going to be one of the longest field goals to win a rivalry game that I've ever seen in college football, or we're going to overtime. Like, that's all you think about, right? You don't think, oh, well, they're going to block it and return for a touchdown. It's like he's either going to make it or we're going to overtime. So their kicker, who actually had come in at the later part of the game, because the Alabama starting kicker had missed 3 field goals from like 40 yards and in. A Division I kicker. Your only job is to kick field goals, and you missed 3 field goals in a rivalry game. It's like, get him out of here. You put in a new freshman who apparently could kick like 70-yard field goals, they had said, like in just kind of like pregame and stuff. So it's like, okay, the stage is set. This kid can become a hero in one kick. So he kicks the field goal, and it looked like it was going to go in for like a half second. And then you realize, okay, it's not going in. We're going to overtime. And Chris Davis steps into the spotlight like he is about to take over a starring role in a Hollywood movie. He catches this ball, almost like Antonio Cromartie, if you remember his kick 6 at the end of the half with the Chargers, catches it in the back of the end zone and starts running it out. Now, keep in mind, I'm with my family here, and we're just kind of hanging out, and I have extended family also staying with me. And they're not as big sports fans, which makes what I'm about to say next all the more greater, because they just love watching sports, but they have like no connections and everything. And Chris Davis starts running this back up the left sideline. And I'm like, and I think I even said this out loud, I was like, he might go all the way. And I was like, there's no seconds on the clock. It's 28-28, rivalry game, last weekend of college football before the playoffs start and bowls start. And he might go all the way. And I'm like, I think he might go all the way. And my grandpa, sitting in a reclining chair, kind of leaned back, he's like, he is going all the way. And it was insane, because my grandpa was just like, yeah, he's going. Like, he is going all the way. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I watched Chris Davis run alongside one of his teammates into the end zone live. That was live. Like, it wasn't like I saw it on the Sports Center later where you have a Sports Center commentator. Like, there is a live reaction from the commentators. There's live reaction from my family. There is jaws dropped of like, not only that just happened, but they beat Alabama to do it. And then Nick Saban throwing the headset. And like, it's like all of it set up for a perfect, like I mentioned, Hollywood movie scene. Chris Davis, I heard he got a standing ovation in his classroom like that next week. Like, that's how incredible that was. Chris Davis stepped into the spotlight, and I saw it live. And so that's the first edition of that was live, but has no connection to any of my favorite teams, but was just as good because, I mean, college football, Caleb, I'm telling you, if you give it a chance, my man, if you give it a chance, it will not disappoint you. It was the craziest end to a football game I have ever seen, period. Outside the Minneapolis Miracle, which I didn't see live, even though I wish I would have seen that live because that was crazy between the Vikings and the Saints. That's the next best thing for me. That was live. Chris Davis, kick 6, Auburn, Alabama.
Wasn't it Michigan State that's another one, the block punt?
Yes. Well, he muffed
crazy.
The punt, and then he gave it away, and Michigan State scored in the last play of the game.
That's you know what this story is making me think more than anything else?
What?
When can sports be back?
Oh my goodness. Don't make me cry. Guys, we are a month away from sports returning. It's been over 100 days, and we're finally going to have it back. It's coming up quick. It is coming up quick.
And hopefully it sticks around. Hopefully the virus stays down. But baseball on July 23rd/24th, and NBA July 29th, 30th.
Yeah, something like that. Just whenever it comes back, I'm ready.
Yeah, anytime. Well, on that note, though, let's transition to our next segment. That was live. High five. All right, guys, welcome back to High Five, where we are giving today our top 5 NBA players of all time. This is our GOAT list. AJ and I are both excited, and I don't know what you're gonna do. You know, AJ's the basketball guy, but I have my opinions as well. And I'm gonna start us off today.
Oh boy!
And
Bear with
My
this man.
number 5.
He's still new to basketball, everybody. He's still new to the basketball. Bear with him.
But hey, my arguments, I think I have arguments.
They better be good. Sorry, I want to interrupt you. Continue.
No, you're good. You're good. My number 5 basketball player of all time is Bill Russell. So Bill Russell, 11 titles, which is probably never going to be matched. He played. He's one of the older players, probably the oldest player on this list in terms of when he played. But he won 5 MVPs, and he was just one of the best defenders to ever play basketball. So he gets my list at number 5. He had ridiculous rebounds, great defense. He didn't put. I don't think were recording. They didn't have finals MVPs or blocked.
Not yet. They named the trophy after him, which I think is even better. But
yeah. I mean, that's like the ultimate.
Right.
So right. Bill Russell, he's my number 5 of all time.
Okay, I can respect that. That's a good choice, especially in an era where it's like there wasn't a lot of competition because there wasn't a lot of NBA teams left, or not a lot of NBA teams existing yet. But still, they have 11 world championships. The Celtics went to the NBA Finals almost every year. Like, it was insane. So I can respect that.
Russell, the Celtics. Yep.
Russell and the Celtics. My number 5 player of all time. I don't know if you would be considered too low on this list. He deserves to be in the top 5, but as I was thinking about the other people on my list, I couldn't put him above the other people. Number 5 is Magic Johnson. Okay. Magic Johnson is number 5. He's the greatest point guard of all time, in my opinion. 6'9", could pass the ball with his eyes closed and blindfolded. He could do whatever he wanted with the basketball. Watching highlights of him is like poetry in motion. I could watch highlights of Magic Johnson passing the ball all day. The only reason he's number 5, Caleb, is because he couldn't shoot. He didn't have a jump shot at all. Otherwise, I would put him higher on my list. I mean, he has that famous baby hook where he stepped in and played center and point guard when Kareem got hurt in the early on in earlier finals for the Lakers. But I mean, he's got 4 or 5 championships. He's up there with the greats. Yeah, he's up there with the greats of all time. He and Bill Russell. Well, I think Bill Russell actually was on the tail end of his career when Magic Johnson came in. I mean, him and the Celtics went back and forth. There's a 3-part 30 for 30 documentary on it. It's just so well done. One of the greatest rivalries in all of sports history. But Magic Johnson, he won 4 or 5 championships out of that. Like, that's respect. When you can go up against your rival time and time and time again and come out victorious, on top of being the greatest point guard of all time, you have to make a top 5 list. So the only reason he's not higher is because he couldn't shoot. But, I mean, he's one of the greatest passers of all time, greatest point guards of all time, and his size, he could match up with anybody defensively. But with my top 4, as you'll see, I couldn't put him above those guys. But he's my number 5.
Yeah. That Lakers Celtics rivalry. He's actually my number 4. So Magic Johnson makes my list at number 4.
There you go.
So 5 titles. He won 3 MVPs as well. I don't know. I wouldn't have said that he couldn't shoot, but maybe he's not as good a shooter as I thought. But
he's not as good a shooter as you thought.
Okay, well there we go. The assists, like AJ said, I mean, one of the greatest passers, 6'9" as a point guard. I mean,
it's insane.
Yeah, AJ wrapped it up for me pretty well. So
perfect. Stole your thunder a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And now I'm about to bring some more thunder. I want all the smoke on this one. I want all the smoke on this one because I could not put Magic Johnson over this dude. He's still currently playing. He is one of the greatest players of all time, in my opinion, already. I would say he's in his prime or just coming out of it, either one of the two, whatever you want to say. Number 4 is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is the number 4 player of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time. Here's why. Kevin Durant is 7'1". Kevin Durant has a wingspan of almost 8 feet. You want me to say that again? He has a wingspan of almost 8 feet. Okay? He's 7'1", has a wingspan of almost 8 feet. By the way, he is one of the prettiest jump shots of all time. 7'1". 7'1", and can shoot the ball. By the way, one of the best, well, not one of the best, he can handle the basketball well, like a point guard. 7'1". 8 feet wingspan. Imagine Bill Russell. Caleb already mentioned it. Imagine Bill Russell, who can shoot, who can handle the basketball. And, by the way, people don't give him enough credit for this. He's not one of the greatest defenders of all time, but he could doggone play defense. He could play defense. He could lock up anybody he wanted to. He's 7'1". And when you think, oh, he could shoot mid-range jumpers. No, this man could shoot 40-footers. 40-footers. By the way, he did it in back-to-back NBA Finals on his way to back-to-back NBA Finals championships. If you want to call him a snake or a cupcake and jumping on a bandwagon, he won NBA Finals MVP in both of those championships for the Warriors. My boys that I'm wearing right now, if you're listening instead of watching the podcast, I'm repping the Golden State Warriors right now. This is not a homer pick because Kevin Durant was already doing this when he was on the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I hated as a Warriors fan, who we blew out after a 3-1 deficit in the 2016 Western Conference Finals, which, by the way, before I continue, some honorable mentions, which I completely forgot to give before I went to Magic Johnson. Some honorable mentions of some other Warriors and other people. Steph Curry is an honorable mention. He's not top 5. He's an honorable mention. Klay Thompson, not a top 5 player, but he's an honorable mention. One of the greatest shooters of all time. Better shooter than Ray Allen. Better shooter than Reggie Miller.
I'm
Klay
sorry.
Thompson.
Did you say Klay Thompson is in your is? Did you say
No,
Klay?
honorable mention?
Honorable mention for. So you're saying he's top 10 all time?
Top 15. I'll put him top 15.
Whoa.
Honorable mention
Big
is not
whoa.
like just top 10. Honorable mention
That's-
is like not top 5, but like in that area. Top 15.
Top 15.
He's the greatest shooter of all time. Next to Steph.
Klay Thompson? Better than
Yes.
Steph Curry.
He's right next to Steph Curry. Like, you have to sit them in the same breath. There's a reason they're the Splash Brothers. There's
Dude,
a reason they're the Splash
that's
Brothers.
Big whoa from me.
He's a better shooter than Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, Caleb. He's a better shooter. He straight up better shooter. And he's still playing. He's only going to get better. Keep that in mind.
Do you think if he was the lone star, or not the lone star, but the main guy on the team, do you think he could really be that guy? Like, I know he's got good defense, he's good shooting, but if you put him on, some.
I mean, I think
team,
he's better because Steph Curry's such a good floor general. But like,
yeah.
You put him on any team, he's still going to shoot the ball. He once scored 40 points on 4 dribbles. 4 dribbles.
Yeah,
40 points. 4 dribbles and 40 points.
That's
how many times do you need to say that? Like,
that's
that's insane. So he's honorable mention. Just keep that in mind. Shaq's also honorable mention. Shaq is a top 10 player, I think. So is Kareem. Kareem's top 10. And Hakeem the Dream is top 10. So these are honorable mentions. Okay? Honorable mention people.
Dude,
Yeah, you okay over there? You okay?
The fact that you put all these great names and then Klay Thompson's in there.
You don't think Klay Thompson is one of the greatest shooters of all time?
So I don't know. No, he's great.
Could he go both ways?
He's one of the greatest. So is he better than there's a lot of names that I'm thinking I don't know what the rest of your top 5 is.
Think of the best shooter of all time, and Klay Thompson is better. In your opinion.
So Klay Thompson is the greatest shooter of all time.
Him and Steph Curry are 1-2, I think.
Wow.
And they switch back to 1-2.
I mean, he's a
I
great
never thought
shooter.
we'd be
Yes.
arguing about my honorable mentions list, but
Hey. Well, we'll move on. We could maybe.
So anyways, Kevin Durant, 7'1", 8-foot wingspan, can handle the ball and shoot the ball like a Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. Not to the extent, but like a Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, like a Ray Allen, has that ability to be consistent. He's won multiple scoring titles. Kevin Durant is a top 5 player of all time right now.
Wow.
And he's not even done with his career.
In terms of, I would say if I had to pick one guy, the greatest, just talent in terms of, like you said, the fact that he has that size, but then can just handle and shoot.
Yeah.
In terms of just the greatest, scariest, the one guy you just wouldn't want to have to guard, it'd be Shaq. There are a few guys, but he's definitely on that list.
Yeah.
So
and
that I just don't know how.
One more note on him. The reason people don't put him in the top 5 list right now, I think, a.k.a. Josh Fulgham, who I want to give a shout-out to because he and I have talked about this, and we just had him on last week, which is why I can give him a shout-out right now. The reason people don't put him in a top 5 list, I think, is because of the fact that he joined a 73-win team.
But
people think it's a weak move.
Finals ever outside of that, right?
What?
He never won the finals outside of with the Warriors, right?
No, because he was with Russell Westbrook, who I don't think is ever going to win a championship as a leader.
I don't
Russell
know.
Westbrook's not a leader.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you there. I think Russell Westbrook isn't all
That's
that.
why they never won a championship. So did he join the right team? I think so. I mean, you can't blame him. He's a superstar.
We'll see what he does with the Nets, but wow, I don't know.
I think the Nets are going to win a championship in the next 5 years. So,
Well, anyways, we'll jump to my number 3.
Get top 3. Get to it.
Yeah, top 3. And mine is a guy you mentioned in your honorable mentions. It's actually Kareem.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that. He's top 10. He could be top 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Number holds the NBA scoring record right now. He's got 6 titles, had 6 MVPs, which is also a record. He was one of those guys that was just dominant for a very long period of time, defensively and offensively. So he's one of the greats, and he's my number 3.
Hey, no argument there.
Probably the greatest center of all time.
That's true. He's right up there with Shaq, I think. I mean, Shaq hasn't scored as many points, but Kareem is, I mean, bigger size, like greater size, and his jump hook was unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like, it was unstoppable. It was like the most unstoppable shot ever. No, I agree with that. Number 3 for me, and I'm actually going to apologize to this man for not mentioning him in this conversation with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Number 3 is Larry Bird. Larry Bird is one of the greatest shooters of all time. I would actually 1, 2, and 3. I mean, 1 and 2, Steph and Klay. Like, there is an easy argument to make for them as being right below them is like a mesh with Larry Bird being right above Ray Allen and Reggie Miller. Larry Bird is right there. The only reason Larry Bird is in this list and not any of those other 4 guys I've mentioned as shooters is because Larry Bird also terrified people. I've never heard stories or seen highlights of a man where other teams were terrified of him. I have never heard stories of a man who would trash talk people, tell them where he was going to shoot for a game-winning jump shot, and hit it. Nothing but net. This man would play horse in the middle of basketball games. He played a game left-handed one time. And oh, by the way, as if this is just like an afterthought, he also won 4 or 5 championships. Like, this man was one of the goats of goats. He's not top 2, obviously, which I will explain why. I hope you agree with me. He's not top 2 because of the 2 names that we will mention. But Larry Bird is right there in that conversation as one of the greatest players of all time. He terrified people. And oh, by the way, I don't want this to sound like a racist comment, especially in light of everything going on in our country right now. But Larry Bird would step onto a basketball court, and many times it'd be the first time a lot of people saw a white guy do work. Like, it was the first time a lot of people saw this white dude just drop buckets. Just go off and drop buckets. I remember one more highlight, and then I'll let you get to your number 2, Caleb, where he played the Atlanta Hawks. Went off for 60 points on the road in Atlanta. And he scored the majority of those points in the second half on the side where the Hawks bench was. And thank goodness that was the case. Because the highlight reels that they show of that is him making fall-away three-pointers out of bounds and the Hawks players falling off the bench. Opposing players, like reacting like fans would to a jump shot. That is how good Larry Bird was, that you could not do anything but sit, watch, and fall out of your seat because you could not believe this man was making the shots that he did. He won a three-point contest with his warm-up on. He won a three-point contest without taking his warm-up off. Like, this man had the swag to go with it. He's in the conversation for best player of all time. He's not, but he's in the conversation.
Bird is a legend. He's in my honorable mentions list, but I love that. The fact that too, just his IQ and his passing, he was and I like that you said just the trash talking. There's one highlight I saw where he hit a game-winning shot, 3-pointer, but like apparently his coach had just called timeout or something. Yeah. And so he literally said, I'm going to the exact same spot and I'm going to hit the same shot to the defense, and did it again. So, yeah, I love that. That's good. That's good. Woo. AJ and I decided we're going to give our number 2 and 1 together.
Okay. Here we go.
Because we all know, some –
Our number 1 – let me just say this, ladies and gentlemen. Our number 1 should be the same. If it's not, we're about to have a crazy, like, end-of-the-world podcast where, like, I might try to reach through the screen and punch Caleb. So we're gonna give our two mainly at the same time, right, Caleb? That's kind of what we've agreed upon, to give our two and our one, so to speak, at the same time. And how do you want to do this? Do you want me to say what the right answer is to this question, or do you want us both to say at the same time?
Who the players are, and then we're gonna say who's number one. Is that how we're doing this?
I think we list who our number two is, and then if our number two is someone that it shouldn't be, then we have a conversation. How about that?
Okay. So I'll give my number two now.
Okay, and I will give my number two like literally a half second after yours.
LeBron James.
Thank goodness.
There we go.
Okay, we're good. LeBron James, the second greatest player of all time. Caleb, make your argument. I will probably agree with you, but
I mean, he's got three finals MVPs, 4 MVPs, and he is, I don't even know what to say. He's just consistently shown that he is one of the great players of all time with how much he's dominated the East. It's undeniable. He's just a well-rounded player. He's got it all, the passing, the scoring, the defense as well. He's led bad teams to the finals, and I think he has to go down as one of the greatest of all time. He's just shattering playoff records. He's got all sorts of records. Big guy that can move. One of the best scorers in the paint ever in terms of drivers. Guys driving to the hoop. One of the best ever. But he can shoot as well. And great leader, game IQ, all that stuff. He's got it all. And he's still going. So we'll see if he gets another title. But he's my number two of all time.
I agree. When you go to 8 straight finals, I mean, that's enough said in and of itself.
He won 24 straight playoff series in the East. Like, he just owned the East.
He was just, I mean, no one could beat him in the Eastern Conference. It was just kind of like humorous. Like, you guys are professional athletes, and one man's going to – that you can do that when you're LeBron James, I guess. He's great. He's not number one. I will emphasize that. He is not number one. Not even close. Not even close to being number one. I think that even with a couple more championships, I'd be willing to have more of a conversation, but he's not number one. Not even close. He is a solid number two. I don't think there's anybody better than LeBron James outside of this gentleman that we will mention in just a couple of moments, which I hope we would mention in the same breath. If there is another name that comes out of Caleb's mouth, except for the one that I'm thinking of, that is the rightful answer, again, I will try to punch him through the screen. Regardless, we will digress there. But yeah, nothing more to say about LeBron James. He's the number 2 player of all time. Great talent, runaway freight train. You don't want to get in his way when he's coming down the lane to throw down a hammer dunk. I mean, the fact that this man hasn't broken more backboards is mind-boggling. So, yeah, it's an easy answer for me, and so should be number 1, right, Caleb?
Yeah. Well, one other thing I was going to say about LeBron that I just thought of is that, too, you think about the expectations he had coming out of high school. The fact that he's basically lived up to them is pretty insane. Yeah, not many players that can say the same.
Yeah.
So the number 1.
Why are you making me nervous?
A lot of people would say the number 1. I'm just kidding. Okay. Number 1 is Michael Jordan. I had to mess with AJ there. No, number 1 player of all time is Michael Jordan. What can we say? 6 titles, six finals MVPs. Never went to a game 7.
Keep that in mind. 6 finals appearances, 6 NBA Finals victories.
6-0. He won the league in scoring. 10? He's like 10 straight years. Basically every year he played except for his first year and his last couple of years with the Wizards. He revolutionized basketball. He made the game popular.
more than Babe Ruth revolutionized baseball. In fact,
no, maybe culturally, but in terms of dominating the sport, no. But anyways, he was a cultural icon.
He's tripling down. He's
just transcendent. For me, a lot of what puts him at the GOAT too is just the stories. The fact that he's 6-0 and the fact that he scared people to death. People were terrified to go up against this man. And similar to Larry Bird, he'd trash talk him and then do it. So he could do what he wanted on the court, essentially. Close to.
Go watch the Last Dance documentary if you guys haven't yet. That's a really well done documentary about the Bulls. their 6th championship. Michael Jordan was also one of those teammates that you hated to love and loved to hate. He was the type of guy that like would get on your nerves, but he'd get on your nerves enough where you actually would want to play better. And so doing, Michael Jordan ended up being the kind of leader that allowed for the greatest role players to step into their roles perfectly. The Bulls have one of the best teams in terms of role players I've ever seen. And the only thing that compares to it is when my Golden State Warriors won their first championship, or the San Antonio Spurs. Those are the 2 teams that come to mind. Because the idea of role playing in those situations, I'm talking about the Warriors before Kevin Durant, and I'm talking about the Spurs pretty much in the whole Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker era. They played their roles beautifully. And how were they able to do that? Because they saw the absolute perfection of it with the triangle offense, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, John Paxson, Bill Weddington, Luke Longley. I mean, you think of all these names, and you don't think of them as like top players of all time. But you know what? They were some of the best players in the NBA during those years because of Michael Jordan. Plain and simple. And that is crazy to think about. That's the type of leader that man was. Unequivocally, undeniably, without any conversation, at least for the next 5 years, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. At least.
I don't know about any conversation, but,
Depends on the kind of conversation we're having and how long it goes for. But there's no argument. There's no argument. LeBron James is great. Michael Jordan is better. And one-on-one, this is another conversation for another time, but one-on-one, it's also no contest. I just want to say that. One-on-one, it's no contest.
That's a hot take.
What I mean by no contest is not that Michael Jordan would skunk LeBron James. What I mean by no contest is that Michael Jordan would, in a best of 7, one-on-one, 2-11, Michael Jordan wins in 6. Michael Jordan wins in 6. He is not taken to a 7th game because he never did in his career.
He can deal with LeBron's size?
Yes. Can he deal with LeBron's size? Michael Jordan was one of the most physical players of all time. When he started lifting to beat the Pistons, it was game over. Imagine if he had started lifting before the Pistons. Like lifting like heavily. This man might have 8 championships. 9 championships.
If he
the Pistons stopped him from doing that.
Retire for baseball for a while, he could have had 1 or 2 more.
Well, that's true.
But we don't know. We can't give it to him.
We'll see. But
yeah.
Anyways, that was. I agree with your list. I wouldn't change a lot. I mean, obviously different changes on that. I want to hear all his comments on Kevin Durant. I believe he's a top 5 player of all time. Maybe top 10 if you want to make an argument, but there's no way you can put him out of the top 10 right now. 7-1, one of the greatest shooters, one of the best scorers. I don't know how you leave him out of a top 10 list. We're going to move on. It's time for Caleb's segment. This is Beyond the Numbers.
Welcome, guys, to Beyond the Numbers. Today, we're going to be talking about a stat that I think is overrated, and it's in baseball. And some people, I think more people are beginning to realize it's overrated, but it's still used, and that is pitcher win-loss record. Pitcher win-loss record should be taken with not just 1 grain of salt, a lot of grains of salt, because that didn't really make sense, but it is very unreliable in terms of a metric in even just comparing pitchers, because it depends so much on your team. And so the performance of a pitcher can be can have a great game, and if his team doesn't score any runs, he could lose or not get the win or even get the loss. So you get a win as a pitcher if you are pitching when your team takes the lead, and then you maintain that lead for the rest of the game. So it'd be like it is a neat statistic in some ways in terms of you can see how often a pitcher maybe out-dueled the other starter. However, if you go 6 innings, 6 scoreless innings, and the other guy gives up 3 runs, but then your closer blows it, then you don't get a win. And so it's just come to a very skewed stat. One example is Jacob deGrom in 2018. Even last year, but 2018 was a more extreme example. The Mets offense was bottom 10 in the league. Jacob deGrom won the Cy Young Award, his ERA was 1.7. He only gave up 10 home runs in like 220 innings, so he was just lights out. His win-loss record was 10-9. He barely had a winning win-loss record because of the very lack of run support. Walker Buehler, on the other hand, is another example. Last year, he had a respectable ERA, a good ERA of 3.26. It's very solid. But his win-loss record was 14-4 because the Dodgers had such a good offense. So what's win-loss record really is not saying a whole lot to me because there's so many variables. Once you're out of the game, who knows what happens? Or you could pitch 8 innings of 1 run, and if you just happen to be going up against a pitcher that does a little better, you'll get the loss. So, yeah, I think a good stat to use can be quality starts, which is a quality start is if a pitcher goes 6 or more innings and gives up 3 or less runs. So that's something it's only reliant on the pitcher, how well he did. So anyways, that's kind of my short stat for the day. Overrated is pitcher win-loss record.
I agree.
That's also, on that note, that's why Cy Young's record of 511 wins will never be broken because pitchers don't pitch as long as they did back in the day. They weren't worried about pitch counts, and so pitchers would go until the end of the game. And so that's why Cy Young has the most wins and also the most losses of all time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think how many pitches they threw, like, in those old days. Like, had to be, like, 130 at least.
Oh, no. Guys would throw 200-plus pitches.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Their arms would fall off, basically.
That's insane.
Hopefully that was interesting, though. But let's move on to our greatest segment coming up here, Double Dippin'.
Welcome back to Double Dippin', where Caleb and I, just like we did back in the day with back-to-back doubles, give back-to-back hot takes. And we're going to try to get just as hype as we did back in the day as in the present day. You already know what time it is. Time to double dip. We should get like a bowl of chips or something. We're going to have to make some T-shirts or something with double dipping, all the hot takes listed, all the different stuff, whatever. You guys should come up with ideas for that. Hit us up in the comments. But we're moving on. It's time for me to take the first dip. And I always love taking the first dip because I always like to spice it up. I hate spicy food, but I love spicing up a conversation. This is my hot take, Caleb Waymeyer.
Okay.
And I already told you, you will have 2 reactions to this. Either you will be livid with me, or you will just roll your eyes and be like, just let him go. My hot take is this. Stop hating on hockey. Everybody. Stop hating on hockey. Please stop. And there it is. It was either roll the eyes or livid, and Caleb just rolled his eyes. I'm going to keep going. Stop hating on hockey, everyone. I'm dead serious. Stop hating on it. Because you know what? I used to hate on it. I used to be the biggest hater of hockey. I hated hockey. I hated it. I had there was no incentive for me to watch it. Like, what's the point? What's the point? There's no point to watching hockey. And I know that's where a lot of you, including what looks like my co-host, I think that's where a lot of you are still right now. And I want to help you a little bit. I want to help you and give you a reason why you need to stop hating on hockey. And it's actually a couple reasons. The first one is this. It's a great sport. People dog it all the time as soccer on ice, or it's, volleyball on ice or whatever. That's a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of baloney. Or whatever. Different sports with goals. Water polo, whatever you want to say. I don't know why I said volleyball. I'm already fired up about this. It's a great sport because it's different than any other sport you will ever watch. Why? Because you're skating around the ice just like you would in an ice rink. But oh, by the way, you have pads on and a hockey stick, and you're skating at full speed. It's a great sport. It is a great sport. It's so much fun to watch. It's intense. It is super intense. People think that hockey is just as slow as soccer. That is not the case, my friend. Soccer is much slower than hockey. Much slower.
You can still hate on soccer.
And I will hate on soccer until the day I die. I love playing soccer. I've been playing FIFA for the past couple of days. I love playing it. Love all the different stuff. I cannot stand to watch soccer games. Quick side note on why I hate soccer so much. The World Cup. The World Cup did me wrong, Caleb. They did me wrong because I watched the World Cup. I usually watch highlights. I was like, you know what? I'm going to support my country. It's when the United States actually made the World Cup. United States soccer, step it up. 2016 World Cup. United States versus Germany. 90 minutes, 1-0. You know when the first goal was, Caleb? The 13th minute. I sat there for 2 hours and wasted 2 hours of my life. I could have had more fun watching paint dry. I could have had more fun sticking my hand in front of my face and moving my fingers. That's how boring it was. That's my quick side note on soccer. That is not hockey. Hockey is much more intense because you're going up and down the ice every single second. And if you are up against the boards with the puck, you can get blindsided, hitting harder than a linebacker hits a quarterback in hockey because there's a wall next to you. It's a great sport. It's intense. They allow fights. It is the only sport where they allow fights. Sign me up. Sign me up. When you allow guys to just go at each other for 15, 20, 30 seconds, and the fans are cheering them on, and you can punch a dude in his kisser 2 or 3 times in the middle of a game, that is a great sport. That is a great sport. Because then guess what? The game continues. The game continues. So when guys get into a brawl in hockey, which happens a lot more than you realize, they allow it to happen. Now, in the playoffs, they kind of make it a little bit more strict because it's playoff games. But they allow fights. It's a great sport. It's intense. They allow fights. It's a faster pace than people think. I'm going to say that again. It's a much faster pace than people think. For example, the playoffs, the NHL playoffs, which I didn't give 2 licks about. I didn't care. Like 2, 3, any year except last year. I didn't care about it. Until last year. And last year, I watched the NHL playoffs. And Caleb, double hot take. I would put the NHL playoffs up against any other professional sports playoff series. Any other professional sports playoff series. It is just as intense, if not in some instances more intense. Because the environment in a closed arena, watching dudes go at each other. I mean, go at each other. And oh, by the way, when you go into overtime, it's sudden death. I watch my St. Louis Blues, who, by the way, one of the reasons you guys are probably wondering, why in the world are you talking about hockey all of a sudden? I was a St. Louis Blues fan I've been a St. Louis Blues fan for all of a year and a half because I've already been a Cardinals fan, and then I started watching hockey last year, and so I had to pick a team. St. Louis Blues, literally right down the street from the Cardinals. By the way, the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup my first year watching hockey. That's also why I love hockey so much. When you cheer for your team and they win the first year you're watching the sport, it tends to help out a little bit. So yeah. I'm not a bandwagon because I'm in the same city as St. Louis, right down the street from the Cardinals. That helps out a lot. Stop hating on hockey, y'all. I'm serious. Stop hating on it. It's not soccer. It's not soccer on ice. It's not water polo on ice. It's not any other sport you can think of. It's different than any other sport. And its playoff series goes up against any other playoff series in professional sports. Come on, somebody. Go ahead.
That's good. I like watching hockey. I don't watch it that often. I find it interesting. I don't disagree with what you said. My biggest problem with hockey is probably not as a spectator, but the fact that it's more foreign to us than other sports in the sense that we can't just go out on ice and play hockey whenever we want. You know,
that's why we watch it, though, isn't it?
No, but I mean, like as
like you can't relate to it as much. Is that your argument? Sort of.
Like basketball, it's more exotic in that sense. I mean, maybe if you live in Canada, not really, because you're doing that. But in terms of just for most Americans, probably something like football, basketball, even baseball, soccer. Not trying to give a shout out to soccer, but I am. Are sports that you can just play. You just have a field and you play them. Whereas soccer, it's just harder to get into it as an athlete, and I think that's why it's less popular. Because then people can't relate to it as much because they never played it and never kind of had that experience. But it is interesting. Like you said, it's fast-paced, it's intense.
Yeah. So. Well, I think my pushback to that would be because of the fact that it's so foreign and exotic, that's why more people should jump on it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to latch onto, like, oh, I can't connect with these players in any way. And that's why you're just like, they're weird to me and I love them. I mean, like hockey players have the weirdest faces. And they're like teeth lost, scars on their face. I mean, they beat each other up. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna dip second here.
Oh boy, dip second at your own risk.
Yeah. So I've been looking forward to this hot take, and in a sense, I've been waiting for this hot moment since we started the podcast.
Goodness, it had to be longer than that, but since we started the podcast.
So it's been something I've been thinking about, just researching a little bit, just kind of going over, and I think it is my hot take, and that is this.
Oh boy!
So AJ said that LeBron James is not close to Michael Jordan.
Why are we doing this? We're doing this.
And Michael Jordan is my GOAT. And again, I've made the distinction a little bit of what is GOAT. You know, it's not necessarily it's the legend of the person, what they've accumulated, what they've put together over their career. And my hot take is that,
oh my gosh,
everything else being equal, the single best basketball player of all time is LeBron James.
Oh, I'm too tired to even deal with you right now.
There are a few different ways I could take this hot take.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yes.
Michael Jordan is not the best player of all time if you just said that.
He's, all things being equal, he's not the best of all time. No,
I don't even have words for you. Oh my gosh. What are you doing? Again,
this is what I'm saying.
What are you doing?
I'm saying if you lined up every player in NBA history in a line and I had to pick one, I'm picking LeBron.
You're not serious.
If you put him right now. And there are a few ways to go about this.
So back up. Let's just clarify this. They were asking this about NFL players recently on ESPN. If you had to draft the number one player of all time, you have an NBA draft, and you're starting a team, who do you start with?
Right now?
I mean, we're thinking about everyone.
Yeah, LeBron.
Caleb, I don't have words for you. Caleb, Michael Jordan is 6 for 6.
Yeah, well, you know, that's we're going to talk about it. You haven't let me state my case. There's a few reasons, all right? And I'll kind of get into them, and you're going to hate all of my reasons.
I know. First of all, I'm just going to go to sleep right now.
First of all, for LeBron James, he is I would say he is a more well-rounded player than Jordan. In terms of, he's clearly a better passer. I mean, the guy is like...
Clear? Did you just say clearly a better passer?
Yes!
Oh, my God.
LeBron James is one of the greatest passers of all time.
He's not better than Michael Jordan.
So, clearly a better passer.
Hold on. Is Magic Johnson a better passer than LeBron James?
Yeah. But he's up there with him. I put him as one of the great passers of all time. In terms, would you
put Michael Jordan as one of the greatest passers of all time?
No.
Why?
I'm not saying he was bad, bro. He's not. He's a scorer. He was never like a passer.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're finding the loophole in this argument. You're saying that because LeBron James shares the ball more, it makes him a better player than Michael Jordan. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
No, I've only scratched the very surface of what I'm saying.
Oh, and you're already on my nerves.
I knew it'd be on your nerves. I'm sorry for that, but it's true. So
it's not true.
Well, it's a debate.
There's no way you believe this.
He's got size, so rebounds, right? He's shot. The other thing is, so yes, Michael Jordan's one of the greatest, if probably the greatest scorer of all time, right? There's also the fact that
are you asking trick questions now?
No. There is also the fact that, I mean, he took so many. You look at the games that he puts up all these.
Oh my word!
On 36 shots in the playoffs. Who shot a higher field goal percentage from 3 and 2? It was LeBron. But here we go. This is one of the main parts of my argument is that Michael Jordan played in an era that allowed him to be great. Not that he wasn't great.
Stop it.
90s basketball.
Stop it. Who played with more Hall of Famers, Caleb? Who played with more Hall of Famers?
LeBron James had tougher competition. I don't know who played with more Hall of Famers.
LeBron James had tougher competition?
Without a doubt. Listen.
Let me make my word. There's no way. Did you know, outside of the Warriors, who are one of the greatest teams of all time.
And he faced
LeBron James did not play tougher
in the finals.
What?
And he faced 4 times. The Spurs were also better than probably anything. I'd say the Spurs were better than
Spurs? The Spurs? The Spurs are great. The Spurs are fantastic. The Spurs are not better than teams Michael Jordan faced.
Well, no. Not necessarily than teams Michael Jordan beat. So like Larry Bird's Celtics or something, they're, I don't know about
I'm
that.
I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go. And then I'm gonna give you some teams that Michael Jordan faced to completely debunk your argument. But go ahead.
Okay. We'll talk. Well, yeah. Well, first of all,
tougher competition, my blood. Good.
I'm going to talk about, listen, you have to listen to what I'm saying, though, and not listen to it.
I'm listening. I'm going to let you go. Go ahead.
1988, right? So Jordan won his championships, 91, 2, and 3, and then like
95, 96, 97.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7. So 6 expansion teams were added to the league from 88 to 95, which led to 90s basketball was one of the most watered down leagues. Was one of the most watered down eras.
You did not just call the 90s watered down. You did not just call the 90s.
Listen to this. Dennis Rodman, 1996. This is a quote from Dennis Rodman. He said this: "This league is so filtered and watered down, we can beat anybody with our eyes closed."
Oh, so we're taking quotes from Dennis Rodman now. We're taking quotes from a guy who changes hair color every 15 minutes. That's what we're doing now?
Jazz broadcaster Ron Boone, okay? He says, the talent level now in the 90s nowhere compares to what it was 8 years ago, and obviously it's because of the expansion. You can't deny that if they add 6 new teams, all the talent gets diluted. That's why, when they won they had their 69 or 70 wins.
You think Michael Jordan skated his way to a championship?
We'll keep going. I don't want to say that, but I don't want to say that. But it's a watered down league, and then these new expansion teams that are terrible are getting the top new players as they come in. It keeps it down. That's what I'm saying. Is it's Dennis Rodman said it. That I know you're like, okay, whatever he says.
Keep going.
But he said we can beat anybody with our eyes closed because they had all it takes is a few good players to be a great team. So that's kind of the first part of my argument. And everyone agrees that 90s era basketball is watered down. The 80s was not. But Michael Jordan didn't win a championship in the 80s. So now, in terms of, where do I go with this?
Do you want me to speak, or should I let you continue?
Well, if you want to speak on watered down specifically, but I have other things to go to.
Oh my goodness. Just keep going. We'll spend forever if we start on each one.
Yeah. He had with Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, I really think he played on a great team. It wasn't just Michael Jordan. It was a great team. Now, he was the clear leader on the team, but you think without Jordan leaves, and what happens? The Bulls go 55-27 and nearly make the finals. Now you compare that. Listen to this. This is a big argument for me for LeBron, not playing in a tougher league with tougher competition. I'd say. He leaves in 2010. Cleveland goes from 61-21, and then they went 19-63 the following year. That's 42 less wins. He carried that team to the finals. Granted, he didn't win a finals with them then, but he was the lone guy on that team that carried them. So then, he goes to 4 straight again with Miami, wins 2. When he rejoins, again, the Cavs already had Kyrie Irving. So he rejoins. They go from 33-49 to 53-29 and right to the finals. So they go from 16 games under 500 to the finals immediately. Keep going to the finals. He leaves them. They go from 50-32 being in the finals, and which he did beat. Probably the greatest team. He had to play 4 times. Probably the greatest team of all time, up there with maybe Jordan's Bulls being the Warriors, which he just had the misfortune of playing tough teams, beat them once. Then they went from 50-32. He leaves. They go 19-63 the following year. LeBron James made his team. He led his team in his finals. He led his team in every category. Points, assists, rebound. He in the 17 and 18 back-to-back years he lost to the Warriors, he averaged 35-point triple-double over those finals and still didn't lose. Whereas meanwhile, Jordan, his team without him is still a great team. The Cleveland without LeBron was trash. And granted, he only won one finals with them, but he took them to the finals and was facing the greatest teams of all time. So Jordan did not beat, in terms of competition, Jordan did not beat a top tier player in their prime. He beat Magic Johnson, but that was an injured team. Scottie Pippen on Magic, and that James Worthy and Byron Scott were both hobbled and missing games. That's the only ever beat. Without Scottie Pippen, he didn't do anything. He has a losing record total without Scottie Pippen. 1-9 in the playoffs. So again,
1-9 in the playoffs
without Scottie Pippen. You got swept twice, swept twice in the first round, and then was lost.
That was the beginning of his career.
Well, I mean, I know that's true, but I'm just saying. LeBron's never exited in the first round, by the way.
LeBron also didn't make the playoffs and didn't make the finals until 2007, which is also 4 years into his career.
But you think he came right out of high school?
Jordan, I'm going to touch on that as well.
He was a mature, he had more time where he came, LeBron came in as like an 18-year-old or whatever, however old he was. This is another thing, and you're probably going to have an issue with this, but I think it's legitimate.
I have an issue with everything, so just keep going.
Yeah, sorry. I think that specifically because of, and you'll have to let me explain this, because of a specific game rule I'm going to bring up, that Jordan would have a harder time in today's NBA. And I know people say the hand checking, which is, big deal. People make a big deal about hand checking as if today's players wouldn't know how to function with hand checking, which was, by the way, called in 80s, 90s era basketball. It just it was a lot less than today. However, and that is illegal defense, specifically zone defense. Why was Michael Jordan able to dominate? Not just because of the watered down league, but also because it was illegal to have zone defense. You couldn't gang up on this. This is what you had to do. You had to stick on your man. So Michael Jordan, to double team Michael Jordan, you have to fully commit to him. You can't leave someone else open. So what would happen is everyone else clears out and you get one-on-one isolation. Which, granted, you still have to score in one-on-one isolation, but it made it much harder. Chicago Union Tribune said if teams were talking about, quote, something that Michael Jordan said, if teams were able to, because Michael Jordan was talking to the NBA saying don't allow zone defenses. He said, the Chicago Union Tribune said, if teams were able to play in zone defenses, he said he never would have the career he did. Because then teams are able to gang up on their player without fully leaving this other guy open, because otherwise you can't run and cover Jordan because he's just going to pass it to, you're leaving someone wide open. So those things combined allowed him to have the career he did. Did he still have the career? I'm not saying it made his career. It just allowed his career. The watered down league, less competition, and the fact that LeBron James is completely well-rounded and has carried his team everywhere he's gone. Everywhere he's gone, he makes his team. He always leads his team in every category, and he is the guy. Now, one last thing, people talk about clutch. Yes, Michael Jordan was clutch. However, I just want to say, in the playoffs, LeBron James has more game winners. He has more buzzer beaters, and he shoots them at a higher percent. In the final 5 seconds, he's shot a higher percentage field goal. So I just want to dispel the myth that LeBron James, and he has dispelled it on his own. It was something early in his career. But people say LeBron James isn't clutch. He's one of the highest in terms of he has 7 career playoff game winners and shoots them at about 50%, which are both slightly higher than Jordan. I'm not trying to discredit Jordan. I'm just more saying that LeBron does it too. Elimination games, LeBron is the best there is. He averages 33 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists on 57% true shooting percentage. All of those are better than Jordan in elimination games. So I'm just saying, he's in elimination games. Also, the fact that he's 12-9 in them compared to 6-7 for Michael. Again, I don't really want to hate on Michael. The only reason I'm doing it is because there's this perception of Michael Jordan that he's the basketball god, that he could never lose. However, I think that needs to be dispelled a little bit. He was human. He was great. And those 6 fingers you're putting up are because he played in an era that enabled him to do that. If you put LeBron James in that era, what would happen if you put LeBron in the 80s? What would happen if you put Jordan now? He'd still be good. He'd still be a great player, but he would not be as good as LeBron James. That's my hot take. Sorry, that was a long one, but it was worth it.
Holy cow. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I won't either.
You have something next to you that, like, you spiked your drink or something? You feeling okay? I know COVID's going on. You have, like, symptoms or something?
Well, I mean, if you want to respond to something specifically, that's fine. But I
don't know where to start. You called an era where upwards of 20 Hall of Famers played in, watered down. You said that zone defense would change Michael Jordan's career. Really, the greatest player of all time would be changed.
Michael Jordan agrees with me. He said it himself. I'm just quoting him. He said he'd not be able to have the career he had if they had allowed zone defense.
Okay, Michael Jordan, in saying that, is obviously what was the interview for? Just answer that. What was the interview for?
It's through the Chicago Union Tribune. I didn't look up the details.
When was it?
When
was the interview?
I think it was at the end of his career because I think it was 2001 that they brought in zone defenses.
Okay. It was. I mean, everybody always believes things that they said 19 years ago.
Well, he said it then. I'm sure. Just real quick, by the way. So
I'm so sick of you, man.
He played. I just saw this. He faced 16 different Hall of Famers in the playoffs.
16.
And he has a losing record against 9 of them.
How many Hall of Famers did he play against in NBA Finals?
I'm not sure.
How many did LeBron play against?
But he didn't. Did he? He wasn't playing guys in their prime. Yes, players.
Was Patrick Ewing in his prime?
Yes, but Patrick Ewing is not.
Was Clyde Drexler in his prime?
But look, you're not talking about guys like Magic and Bird, guys that yes, he beat Magic. He beat an injured Magic team at the end of his career. He didn't have other guys like top guys. Yes, he played good teams. He had good players. And those names, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, these are good players. But he was always on the better team.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say.
I think you're speechless because it's a decent argument. I think it's a good argument. And I'm not trying to say he was not great. He's still my GOAT. But I'm saying he was.
No, he's not. No, I'm going to call you out right now. Michael Jordan is not your GOAT with the argument you just made. He's not.
Okay. He's not my best player of all time, but in terms of the GOAT of just most legendary.
No. What does GOAT stand for?
Greatest of all time.
It's the same thing.
Hey, my dilemma is how to put those. I mean, I'd change my list a little bit then, probably, but my dilemma is how to.
So answer me this question.
All right.
Michael Jordan, would he or would he not have 6 championships if he played in today's NBA?
No, he wouldn't.
Would LeBron James
have 6 championships? What?
Is LeBron James going to finish with 6 championships in his career?
It doesn't look like it, no. But he had the misfortune of playing the worst and some of the hardest teams. You can't say that. You cannot say that in the finals, Jordan had tougher competition than LeBron. You cannot say that, and you know that.
In the finals?
Yes.
I mean, in terms of teams, but you have to think about the whole playoffs. You can't just think about the finals.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
In the playoffs, Michael Jordan played some top 10 teams of all time. The Pistons?
Jordan.
The bad boy Pistons?
Which he lost to like 3 times.
And then beat?
Mm-hmm. Once.
I mean, when Michael Jordan lost to the Pistons the 3 years before, he himself knew that it was because he hadn't weightlifted. LeBron James got his butt waxed by the Warriors 3 out of the 4 times after being the player he already was. Now, you're going to say it's because he didn't have help.
No one on his team, and we know that.
You're going to say it's because he didn't have help. And I disagree with that.
He had no shot to win it. It's a miracle that he won the year he did.
He had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Those are great athletes, great stars. It is not a stretch to say I was ticked that we blew a 3-1 lead. But when Kyrie Irving made that shot, I was like, that's one of the best shots I've ever seen. Kyrie Irving made that shot, not LeBron James.
But
Kyrie
LeBron is the clear leader on that team. He led his team in every category.
LeBron's the clear leader, but Kyrie Irving made the
Jordan
shot.
Jordan only led his team in the finals in scoring. Scottie Pippen led in assists, rebounds, blocks, steals. He covered the top guy, usually not Jordan. I'm saying LeBron is the guy that leads his team. And Jordan, yes,
who's
Jordan
a better leader?
Team. You can't know.
What do you mean you can't know?
How do you quantify leadership? They're both great leaders in different ways.
How do you know LeBron's a great leader?
Because of his play and what players say about him. He comes along and picks up his team. I don't know, like that he's a good leader. What am I supposed? I don't have a quote here.
LeBron James intimidates people.
Wait, no. LeBron James is the guy that comes alongside you. Jordan's the guy that intimidates people.
People like to think that he comes alongside people.
So, no, players have said that. Are you making things up or like?
No. And his teammates say that, but you know what? When you're in front of the media, you're not going to give every single detail. You know that. We talked about this earlier.
So you're saying your argument is that players are lying in front of the media and somehow you actually know that.
No, they're not lying because I believe LeBron James does have qualities. What I'm saying is Michael Jordan is far and above a better leader than LeBron James. And there was championship rings to prove it.
So,
Caleb, I think that the reason LeBron James lost those great Warriors teams wasn't just because LeBron didn't have talent. You know what? I also think it was because LeBron James thought he could do it all by himself. And
he was doing it all by himself because there's no one there. You know, he leaves and this team wins 19 games.
Okay,
who did he have in the last 2 that the last 2
LeBron James played tougher competition
on his back?
If LeBron James played tougher competition, how did he get to 8 straight finals with nobody?
Because he's LeBron James.
No, it's because the East is weak. The East is weak. You know, in the 90s, the East was a lot better than it is now. The Eastern Conference is one of the weakest conferences I've ever seen in professional sports. Teams below 500 make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Well, Jordan made the playoffs with like 30 wins. Jordan played in a watered-down league. Everything was weak back then. The NBA was weak when Jordan played.
This is insane. You're okay. I need some more time to think about this.
Hey, we can come back to the conversation. We can come back to a later week. I know you weren't prepared for it, so that kind of makes it one-sided. But
this is definitely a conversation we're putting a pin in. I'll tell you what, that's an argument I've never heard before. I need to do some searching on that one. I mean, maybe you make some good points. I don't know. I've never heard that argument specifically. Anyways, we're going to revisit it at some point. Caleb's getting dicey with the hot takes, but hey, that's what this podcast is for. So we want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. It's episode 5. We already put out some more YouTube content. You guys already saw that. Stay tuned for some more stuff. Caleb and I are brainstorming some more ideas. and we're thinking about some stuff. So we'll be continuing to put out episodes for you guys. Caleb's gonna go on the road. He's probably actually already on the road by the time this is dropped, and enjoying time with friends. But we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to more stuff to come, more special guests to come. We're just getting started, and sports aren't even back yet. So we're excited. We're thankful. Very thankful for you guys and your support. Continue to give us reviews and likes, and we will talk to you guys next time. I'm Caldwell.
I'm Caleb.
And we'll talk to you guys later. God bless.